because you're saying I'm gaslighting you by saying...
you. You're not upset. You're perfectly...
Oh, wow.
You're in a perfect condition right now.
Okay. Wow. Holy cow, that's crazy. I mean, I don't know how you... I just don't see what you just did. That's really
What
crazy.
did I do? What did I do? The pizza? Oh, no, it was pizza. Trisha, let me just say... Oh, no. I literally would never say I turned out fine. Even though I did. You're way crazier than me. What did I do? I don't hide.
You do hide the crazy.
I'm all out there. Why do I need to talk about that? Bye, Trisha. Are we going to make TikToks? Are we going to make TikToks? We were supposed to make TikToks.
I really need to leave.
Okay. All right. Well, Trisha left. But I feel like you're so angry about this.
I'm not. I'm angry when you say something.
You need to admit when you're angry. This is why you are such a dangerous person, especially to be close with. You saying turned out fine. I was like, oh, bro, we always call you crazy. You're like upfront crazy. That's why you're so dangerous. You can't do that. Why should anybody ever confide in you?
I am going, but we're not talking later.
Waiting for this moment for a long time. I am strong and beautiful and independent. Clomp, clomp, clomp. Clomp, clomp, clomp. Today we are going to be talking about the manipulative tactics used by Ethan Klein regarding Frenemies and Trisha Paytas. The podcast Frenemies ended just about a year ago now, and there were 3 points during the runtime where Trisha Paytas walked off. Let's take a look at these 3 walk-offs to determine what the cause of them were, if Trisha was justified in walking off, and if Ethan's response was appropriate. Even though Frenemies finished like a year ago, I still feel like there's something unresolved. I still feel like there's some unfinished business. Let's take a look at Ethan's body language and listen to what he has to say to determine whether he truly is trying to manipulate Trisha or not, and if he is, what kind of tactics he's trying to employ. Let's clippity-clop right to it. The first thing of note is the length of these arguments. It's actually quite impressive. Like in this first podcast, it's about an hour and a half long, and the argument is almost 20 minutes long. This makes determining where the arguments start a little bit of a task in itself.
If we have a house, I mean, that's like a bigger commitment than a baby.
That's such a dumb thing to say. You serious?
The argument starts when Trisha makes this pretty bizarre claim. So she might have been serious, she might have just been doing it for the sake of the podcast. It's kind of hard to tell. When Trisha talks about her parents caring more about ownership of the house rather than custody of the children, I think that says there is a kernel of truth that Trisha has when she's saying this.
I had divorced parents. I think they didn't want to give up the house more than they didn't care about giving us up.
That explains all this.
She is probably turning it into a more hyperbolic statement, but I do think there is a good piece of social commentary to be had there if you dig deep enough. Now, you might already be seeing there is some bias in Trisha's favor in this video, and you're definitely right. When I was doing research for this video, I watched Turkey Tom's video on Frenemies, and while there's a lot of good stuff there, and I enjoyed the video, there is a bit that I disagree with, and I don't think anybody has really given Trisha Paytas the benefit of the doubt yet. If only for a moment, try to put yourself in Trisha's shoes and join me on Team Paytas.
If we have a house, I mean, that's like a bigger commitment than a baby.
Wow, you're really... That's such...
Just because she made an absurdist remark about her upbringing on a podcast doesn't qualify her for being crazy. That means she's a good podcaster. Trisha responds to being called crazy by saying that Ethan is also crazy, he just hides it better.
But you're way crazier than me.
That's not true.
Bro, that's objectively true.
You hide it more.
Ethan then makes this ridiculous claim that he doesn't hide anything. He's all out there. He's got nothing to hide whatsoever.
I don't hide.
You do hide the crazy.
I'm all out there.
Trisha then brings up that he was into pills at one point, and he doesn't really talk about that.
You were into pills. You never talk about that you were a pill addict for a minute.
In most circumstances, I would definitely say that was uncalled for. However, Ethan pretty much forced Trisha into a position where she had to prove his claim of honesty wrong. There may have been better examples, and there may have been better ways for her to bring it up, but it was on the spot. Our queen's character is at stake here, for goodness sake.
I have a bottle of antidepressant
I know this.
next to my bed.
Time out.
And I take it out and I stare at it. And I think,
You do pill.
Ethan challenged Trisha's claim that he does have some stuff that he hides, and Trisha had every right to stand up for herself. Ethan tries to say that medication isn't a part of his personality when it's a mainstay of Teddy Fresh.
I don't think that is a defining characteristic of who I am.
Now, I'm not one to say whether or not Ethan abuses his medication, but it is part of his culture for sure. He talks about it, it's on his apparel. It's also important to note that denial is a hallmark trait of addiction. And hey, I'm not trying to shame or gaslight you, Ethan. I'm doing this to help you because, you gotta be like 10 times crazier than me. You need help.
Why do I need to talk about that?
Why do I need to talk about that? Because you just said that you talk about everything. Clomp, clomp. It devolves into Ethan harping on the point that Trisha went too far, although Trisha was just standing up for herself. And because of that transgression, she is labeled as a dangerous person.
This is why you are such a dangerous person, especially to be close with.
Calling somebody who is over-emotional crazy over and over again and calling them dangerous is a great way to make sure that they're going to behave crazy and dangerous. It's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Some would call it gaslighting.
But I'm not upset, and that's what gaslighting is, because you're saying I'm gaslighting you by saying...
You're not upset. You're perfectly...
Oh, wow.
You're in a perfect condition right now.
Turkey Tom brings up the word gaslighting in his video, and while like 80 to 90% of the time he would be right to just ignore the word gaslighting because a lot of the time it is used as this empty argument. However, there are enough instances of people being malicious and manipulative in this manner to the point where it warrants the common use of a word like gaslighting, unfortunately. This, of course, leads to a misuse and an overuse of the word, but that doesn't mean it never happens.
Bro, we always call you crazy. You're like upfront crazy.
We always call you crazy. You're just outright crazy. Yeah, that's kind of exactly the point. First of all, Trisha was trying to say she's more honest about her faults. Second of all, if you're always calling her crazy, maybe that's a big problem. And it is a big problem. One of the main reasons why Frenemies was never going to last is because Ethan has zero respect for Trisha. By using the word dangerous, by using the word weaponized, by calling her crazy over and over and over again, and implying that she is somehow 10 times crazier than Ethan Klein, which just nobody is capable of that.
You'll take something that somebody told you in confidence and you'll use it, you'll weaponize it against them.
That's not true.
That's what you just did.
No, Ethan, it's what you just did. You lied about being honest to your fans and she called you out for it. That's not weaponizing. However, misusing the word weaponize to silence somebody and invalidate their argument is weaponizing, on top of gaslighting being manipulative and malicious. It's a bit rich that he weaponized the word weaponize. And yeah, she's a bit eccentric, but I bet she's real tired of people not taking her seriously in this industry. While she comes off as ditzy, she definitely understands viewer engagement and entertainment.
That's why you're so dangerous. You can't do that.
That's why you're so dangerous. You can't do that. That is the definition of weaponizing language to silence somebody. You're calling somebody dangerous, the weaponization, and then you're saying they're not allowed to use that form of speech, the purpose of the weaponization. Because Ethan wants to keep this facade that he's open and honest and he's willing to talk about anything except the things he doesn't want to talk about, except for the parts of his past that he doesn't want the public to remember, because that would have an effect on his brand-friendly image and the sales of his medication-positive merch. It devolves into semantics for a bit, and then they bring up gaslighting.
You're the pusher and the gaslighter. Be like, oh my God, how could you say that about me? Meanwhile, this whole time being like,
I'm not
you're
saying,
crazy, you're fat, you're this, you're this.
Ethan somehow thinks he's in a situation where he can deny the gaslighting or the fact that he pushes Trisha at all. I don't know how he can be in a mindset where he thinks, oh yeah, I can just say, I haven't been trying to instigate anything, because it's obvious he's been instigating.
You push and push and push constantly.
Nah, you're
do.
Here's a vile remark that Ethan made, and he kind of slipped it in under the radar, but it proves my point pretty well.
Why should anybody ever confide in you?
Why should anybody ever confide in you? Once again, he's very clearly weaponizing his words to silence Trisha, going as far as to bring everybody's trust in Trisha into account. Almost like he's saying, who would ever be silly enough to put their trust into Trisha Paytas? And somehow that's not supposed to be weaponized language? Clomp clomp. It just further devolves into semantics, insults, and justifications. There's still a good bit to this video left, but we have enough information to answer our 3 questions, and we still have 2 videos to go. Let's giddy up right on to it. The argument starts when Trisha asks if Hila can be on the podcast, and Ethan immediately says no.
Can we have Hila as a guest on our podcast?
No.
This immediately descends into them talking about how Hila doesn't like Trisha and how she needs to come onto the podcast to clear the air, and how Ethan says no, it's not going to happen, but it might happen, and how all of this stuff is so dramatic, and they both just can't handle it for some reason.
Why? Because we like a hater should like me or something. Like I feel like we need to like, because like you know what I mean, I like Hila so much.
Yeah, she could probably say it.
You just said no. And
I just a snap judgment. She's busy. Don't talk about Hila. We're cutting this part out. She doesn't want to be talked about.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. We have to cut this.
I do think Trisha overreacted here, and she should respect Hila's decision to not come on the podcast. However, the way Ethan tiptoes around the subject conveys to Trisha that he doesn't respect her, that he feels like dishonesty is a necessity when confronting Trisha. You see, that's the reason why she acts so upset though. Why should she have to live well beyond your expectation of her when you constantly call her crazy? Based on the way Ethan and his crew behave after the fact, it certainly seems like they got what they wanted.
Waiting for this moment for a long time.
To prove my point on this, let's go a little bit out of order and go over Ethan's immediate reaction to every time Trisha walked off.
Are we gonna make TikToks? Trisha left.
I would say he seems amused here.
I'm laughing because Dan's laughing.
He blames Dan for laughing, but Ethan laughed first. Obviously, he's trying to hold it in. He thinks this is funny. He knows that it's best for his brand to try to hide that, but on the inside, he's loving this.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened. Like a little kid who broke a vase. Ethan, you were talking to your cast like she wasn't even in the room. I mean, it's pretty obvious what happened, and it's once again a pattern of you showing no respect to your co-host. Based on the consistency of this ignorance, I wouldn't be surprised if it's intentional. Then he starts doing the thing that he said he wasn't going to do last time out of respect of Trisha, but we all know how that goes.
Well, maybe I shouldn't continue this conversation without her.
Probably
it's not fair. She was talking about like how you're like, my mom's, she says like, your brother hates you and your mom's not, just like.
Explaining Trisha's side of the story after Trisha left for Trisha is one of the most short-sighted things he could have done. He's not better than Trisha, and he's certainly not more sane.
Waiting for this moment for a long time.
So Trisha's suspicions about the cast being against her are completely validated. Knowing Ethan's behavioral type, I bet that his cast was just standing around her like statues, never talking to her, not even trying to make small talk with Trisha. I bet they put zero effort into trying to make any kind of personal connection with her. And that's another point I wanted to make. The H3 brand uses Trisha Paytas like an object, like an ornament. This is one of the shorter arguments, clocking in around 10 minutes, and here's Ethan's reaction. We'll go over the meat of the argument in just a second, but I want to finish this list.
You're making this thing where we're not ending the show and you get to sit here and be like, okay, well that just happened and you're eating pizza and then
I will end the show the minute you walk off the
All right, so
prayer.
let's just end it.
For that one, I guess Trisha nipped it in the bud for us. Still, the fadeaway shows Ethan stoic as can be. Trisha walks off crying during this one, and I think it's because she finally realizes exactly what kind of tactics Ethan is employing and how deep the manipulation goes. You can pretty much see the exact moment that the light bulb flicks on for Trisha.
I'm gaslighting you. You're not upset. You're perfectly,
oh, wow.
You're in a perfect condition right now.
Okay. Wow. Holy cow, that's crazy.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. Where did this begin?
Just because you guys come up with everything doesn't mean it's good. It's recycled, a lot of it.
So this argument starts when Trisha takes a jab at the podcast's recent quality, but the argument winds up being about how much creative input Trisha has on the podcast, which is once again an issue of respect. He never really took the time to saddle up and take his co-host's creative needs into account.
The whole Keemstars, I didn't know. It was like the 30 minutes was exactly the 30 minutes you did on H3 Live.
And what a perfect time to bring up Keemstar. While I'm not saying your wife looks like a horse, if I were to put Keemstar's tweet in a video along with a bunch of horse puns and horse jokes, you might not see that in the most positive manner. I suppose from Ethan's standpoint, you might even call it gaslighting, but all I'm trying to say is horses are strong, beautiful, independent creatures, and so is Hila. Clomp, clomp, clomp. Clippity cloppity clue. Really, it looks like Keemstar doesn't even claim to say that's what he said, so I don't see why you're so upset. Clippity clop. And there's no way in the entire world this could ever be considered gaslighting, because Ethan Klein is 10 times crazier than I could ever be, so you should never listen to his opinion because he weaponizes people's words. Clop, clop, clop. Funny how H3H3 is so ready to criticize Keemstar for his view on mental health when they have to essentially resort to exploiting somebody's mental health issues for the sake of entertainment. You know they've lost their footing. Now, how aware of it he was, I cannot say, but he most certainly was employing manipulative tactics here. Which brings me to the conclusion, Ethan Klein is manipulative at best. These opinions are, in fact, opinions. They should not be confused with facts because they are opinions. Thank you for understanding. Alright, that's gonna have to wrap it up. I hope everybody enjoyed. Shout out to the best subscriber squad on all of YouTube. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Don't do it. So far,